Godspeed.
Ahoy, all of you flick freaks out there, what is going on? My name is Andrew, and we are here with the continuation of the top 100 movies of all time. Disclaimer, as I say before every single one of these videos, keep in mind this is my personal favorite top 100 movies ever. It is not any representation of the top 100 most critically acclaimed movies ever. So you're going to see movies on this list that you may think are too high, too low, shouldn't be on the list at all, or that I completely miss some movies. And you know what? That's perfectly fine because it's my personal 100 movies of all time. Today, we're going to be doing numbers 40 through 31, and I say we just jump right into this with number 40. And to start off the list at number 40, we have my favorite live-action foreign language film of all time. Guillermo del Toro's film Pan's Labyrinth was a beautiful, beautiful film. It just, whenever I went to see it in the theaters, I did not know what to expect because I hadn't heard anything about the movie before my friend said, hey, there's this new movie by Guillermo del Toro. We should go to the movies and see it. And I'm like, oh, I haven't heard anything about it, but sure, I'll go and see it. And I was blown away by how amazing everything was. Not only was it beautiful, but in parts of it, it was actually pretty terrifying. The Pale Man was, I had nightmares about that guy. He was just creepy as shit. But the best part about it was her stepfather and just how Ophelia's stepfather, just how downright evil he was. And then the very end with the rebellion and stuff like that, it was just an amazing movie. I tried to keep everything generic there, so if you've never seen Pan's Labyrinth, you definitely need to go and check it out. I highly recommend it. Having said that, let's move on now to number 39. Coming in at number 39, we have the 1993 Steven Spielberg film Schindler's List. The movie received 12 Oscar nominations, and it took home 7 of them, including Best Picture. Unfortunately, though, for Ralph Fiennes and Liam Neeson, both of them did not receive Oscars. And in fact, neither of them have ever won an Oscar, which is hard to believe that neither Liam Neeson or Ralph Fiennes have won an Oscar. But Ralph Fiennes' performance in this as the Nazi commander was just one of the most brutal, most evil characters ever put on screen. And the fact that he wasn't recognized for that is a shame. The same goes for Liam Neeson with his character as he tries to save the Jewish community that is being transported to the concentration camp. It is a terribly heartbreaking film, and the fact that it was shot in black and white, I actually think that adds to making this movie just the atmosphere of how bleak and awful everything was for all of these people. And the most heartbreaking thing of the entire movie is the "I could have gotten more out" speech at the very end. That just tears your heart apart every single time you see it. It's actually considered to be one of the greatest movies of all time, and I think that's definitely why it deserves a spot on this list. If you've never seen Schindler's List, go and check it out, but make sure you bring a box of tissues with you. Having said that, let's move on now to number 38. Coming in at number 38, we have Christopher Nolan's film Memento, starring Guy Pearce. This movie is one of the most difficult movies to understand. It's definitely not a movie you can have playing in the background while you're getting other stuff done and try and fully understand what the movie's about. This movie demands your full attention the entire time because the movie is about a man who was hit over the head during a robbery at his house, and his wife was murdered, and ever since then he suffers from this short-term memory illness where he can only remember for about 10 minutes and then he forgets everything. So he wants to catch the men who murdered his wife, but the only way he can do that is whenever he finds a clue, he has to tattoo that clue on his body so that when his mind refreshes, he will have all of the information written out before him. And the movie is also insanely complicated because it starts at the end when he catches the guy, and then it goes to the scene before that, and then it goes to the scene before that, all the way back to the beginning. So you're just as confused as Guy Pearce's character is in the movie. One of the most brilliantly directed movies I've ever seen in my life. The fact that Christopher Nolan, whenever you hear that concept of starting at the end, doing the scene before that, and doing that all the way to the beginning, that sounds very confusing, and you need a tour de force director to pull that off. And of course, Christopher Nolan is that man. If you've never seen Memento, it is probably one of Christopher Nolan's best films. A lot of people would say that there are a few others that they like more, but I could definitely understand why somebody would say Memento is the greatest Christopher Nolan movie ever. And you know what? It definitely deserves a spot high on my list. Now let's move on to number 37. Whenever Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio team up, of course, as we've said 100 times on this list, amazing things will ensue. Coming in at number 37 on this list, we have The Wolf of Wall Street. This is actually the film that introduced Americans to Margot Robbie, and thank you God, because she is one of the most gorgeous women of all time. And the fact that this movie is based on a true story makes it all the more insane. It really does. The stuff that they got away with and the fact that they're not dead, considering the amount of drugs and just the insanity that these guys put themselves through, is mind-boggling. It really is. The best scene of the entire movie, without giving away too many spoilers, for me anyway, is what I will call the Popeye scene. If you know what I'm talking about, then during that scene in the theaters, I wanted to stand up and start clapping because it was just one of the most amazing things I had ever seen. It was just so funny. And the fact that Jonah Hill proved once again he is a damn good actor and he deserves to be put in more dramatic roles because he can pull it off. And you don't have to say anything about Leonardo DiCaprio because he is probably one of the greatest actors of our generation, if not of all generations. Again, the man has never won an Oscar. He has to. Eventually, he's going to win an Oscar. He has The Revenant coming out later on this year. Is that going to be the movie that finally wins him an Oscar? I really do hope so. Well, I hope he earns it. I'll say that. I really hope that he earns it. He has earned it in the past, but for this role, he needs to get an Oscar. That's all I'm going to say. He needs to get an Oscar. Having said all that, let's move on now to number 36. Coming in at number 36 on our list, we have my favorite foreign language film of all time. And that would be Hayao Miyazaki's Howls Moving Castle. The movie is complicated in some parts, but yet the complication of it makes it that much more incredible. The movie is about this young woman who's cursed by a witch to have an old body, and the only way she can be cured of this is to find the great wizard Howl. As I've said 100 times, and not only this top 100 list, but in my reaction videos and just my podcast and reviews in general, I've said that when it comes to live action movies, I prefer to have the subtitled version of that film. But when it comes to animated foreign language films, I prefer the dubbed versions. I don't know why, but whenever I have an animated film and it's not dubbed, it's subbed, I can't enjoy it. But whenever you listen to the English dubbed version of this movie, you have some amazing actors in this. You have Christian Bale, you have Emily Mortimer, you have Billy Crystal, and just a plethora of A-list actors in this movie. And the fact that you see all of these people in this movie, it lets you really know Hayao Miyazaki is the real deal. His movies like My Neighbor Totoro and Spirited Away are some of the most beautiful and groundbreaking movies ever. They really, really are. They really pushed forward the animated film genre. A lot of credit goes to him for doing that. And this is my all-time favorite of his works. And if you've never seen Howl's Moving Castle, I cannot recommend it enough. It's not a straightforward movie. You definitely need to pay attention to what's going on. But if you are willing to take the time to pay attention with this movie, you will not be disappointed. You really won't. Having said all that, let's move on now to number 35. Coming in at number 35 on our list, we have the Lego Movie. It came out in 2014. You may be thinking to yourself, Andrew, why is this movie so high on your list? The reason it's so high on my list is because this movie got everything right. I mean, absolutely everything. They set out to make a movie that would not only be brilliant for kids, but for people like me who grew up playing with Legos, the adults, we were laughing our asses off. And another amazing thing about this movie is if you're an actor in Hollywood, you were in this movie. I'm only going to list off a few people who were in this movie. You have Will Arnett, Will Forte, Will Ferrell, Morgan Freeman, Liam Neeson, Chris Pratt, Elizabeth Banks, Allison Brie, Jonah Hill, Channing Tatum. And I'm probably forgetting like 1,000 names. I don't know if I mentioned Liam Neeson or not. But his good cop, bad cop that he did in this movie was probably my favorite character. A lot of people would say that Will Arnett playing Batman was the funniest part of the whole movie. And I can't disagree with you there. And Nick Offerman, I forgot Nick Offerman was in this, but his captain, I forget what his name was, something Captain Beard, Metal Beard, I think it was Captain Metal Beard. But the fact that this movie, it played with a lot of stuff that we saw growing up with Legos. Crazy glue, paint, gum, and the fact that Charlie Day's character, the old classic spaceship guy, he had the cracked helmet where every single spaceman Lego I had, his helmet cracked in that exact spot right here. His chin strap always broken. Every single Lego character I ever owned. And no, the movie is beyond brilliant. Cannot wait for 2018 whenever the sequel comes out. I will be there day one because this movie was one of the funniest movies I've ever seen in my entire life. Having said all that, let's move on now to number 34. Coming in at number 34, we have the greatest heist movie of all time, and that would be Michael Mann's film Heat. This movie set a new bar back in 1995 for what a heist movie needs to be, and so far, there haven't been any films I can think of that come close to how amazing Heat was. Don't get me wrong, there's a bunch of amazing heist movies out there, but Heat is in an entirely different category from all of those movies. Like Inside Man, the Ocean series, none of them come close to what Heat is. The movie stars Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Tom Sizemore, Val Kilmer, and Jon Voight, and a bunch of other people who would grow up to be amazing actors, including Natalie Portman in her second film of all time. First it was Leon the Professional, and then the next movie she went and did was Heat. I mean, this girl was 14 years old, and she was knocking down doors saying, I'm going to be somebody. Are you going to be on board? And Michael Mann was like, yeah, you're amazing. So there's a scene in the movie Heat with Robert De Niro and Al Pacino sitting in a diner. It's one of the most iconic scenes in film history. And I remember just watching that scene over and over again, watching these two titans of Hollywood go back and forth in a staring contest of just who is the better man, and just the tension you could feel between these guys. But not only tension, they respected each other. They were on the opposite ends of the law, but they respected each other. And that is what makes this movie a brilliant movie. Because so many times you see a crime drama like this one where there's just animosity between the cop and the criminal, but they don't really respect each other for how good the other one is. And this movie gets it right. It gets it so right. And that's why it's one of the best movies of all time. And now let's move on to number 33. Coming in at number 33, we have the 1999 film, The Green Mile, starring Michael Clark Duncan and Tom Hanks. Based on the Stephen King novel, this movie will tear your heart out. It is so depressing. And the fact that this movie didn't win a single Oscar is mind-baffling. The movie is perfect. Some people might say it's a little long. It's a fairly long movie. I think it's over 3 hours. I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on that, but I think the movie's around 3 hours long. It's a very long movie, but well worth it. I remember whenever I originally bought the movie on VHS, it was one of those 2 cassette tape movies, like with Titanic was another one that was like that. And The Green Mile is a movie that makes you think a lot about where we were as a society not that long ago and how far we've come. But it also makes you think about humanity in general and all the miracles that are around us that we may take for granted. And Michael Clarke Duncan gives one hell of a performance. And like I said, the fact he didn't win an Oscar for that, or that Tom Hanks did not win an Oscar, is Tom Hanks didn't even get a nomination. Michael Clarke Duncan at least got nominated for his performance. But the movie, I think, was only 4 Oscars this movie was nominated for. And to me, that's just a crime shame. But The Green Mile is one of the most heartbreaking movies ever, but it makes you love every single character in that movie. Besides, of course, Percy. Everybody hates Percy. One of the most hated people ever put on the screen. And it's a good thing, because his performance was that good that you just hated that character so much that you just wanted to jump through the screen and strangle him. But no, the movie is brilliant. I love it, and it will forever have a spot on my top 100 list. Now, let's move on to number 32. Coming in at number 32, we have the Joel and Ethan classic film, The Big Lebowski. The movie is about a pot-smoking deadbeat and his Vietnam vet friend who are tasked with the goal of finding a millionaire's kidnapped wife. And the fact that they have to try and do all of that while at the same time getting in time to go to the bowling alley where they just cannot be separated from, it makes it for one of the funniest movies ever put on screen. The fact that this deadbeat loser played by Jeff Bridges, who kills this movie, him and John Goodman give 2 beyond killer performances. They are the funniest things I've ever seen. And their little buddy Steve Buscemi in this movie, who is very well known for being in almost every single Coen Brothers movie. All 3 of these guys give amazing performances as they go up against Peter Stormare and his group of nihilists, or a group of porn stars in the California Valley. And just, there's a lot of people who would say that this is the funniest movie of all time. And if they were to tell that to me, I wouldn't say, yeah, I could definitely see how you could believe The Big Lebowski is the funniest movie of all time. It's not for me. You're going to find out what I think is the greatest comedy of all time later on down the list. But this one will, again, one that will forever have a spot in my top 100 movie of all time list. It's beyond brilliant, funny as get all, and it should really be in everybody's top comedies of all time. John Goodman, once again, did not receive an Oscar nomination, which he should have. And if you've never seen The Big Lebowski, get off your ass, because the dude abides, and he needs his White Russian. So go and see The Big Lebowski. And let's move on now to the last movie on our list for this week, number 31. And coming in at number 31, wrapping up this week's list, we have the Wachowskis' The Matrix. Their only good movie, but goddamn, if you're going to get a movie right, they went all out to get this one right. The Matrix is probably, besides Star Wars, the most groundbreaking film in history as far as pushing forward advancements and like CGI and what's expected of movies. Because whenever Star Wars came out, it set a new precedent. This is what movies, as far as graphics and just visuals on screen, have to be. After that, we didn't really have much. Maybe Jurassic Park broke some of those boundaries, but nothing to the magnitude of what The Matrix did. This movie, if you can, I remember when this movie came out, everybody was complaining back and forth, man, the movie is great, but nobody really knows what it's about. And I'm like, yeah, it's not that difficult to explain. And they said, well, if you can explain it, so I explained it. So here's what The Matrix is about. It's about the world that we live in right now, the world we perceive, is not real. It's actually a computer-generated world to make humans believe that they're living normal lives, so that machines that we built can harvest our bodies as a source of energy. So the only way that humans, whenever they break out of these this world, they get transported into the quote-unquote real world, and then they are able to plug back into the Matrix. And this, what we live in right now, this computer-generated world, this is the Matrix. They can plug back into the Matrix, but they can do it without living in the same world, like realm of possibilities that we can. They can break gravity. They can upload information directly into their mind. Like, I need to fly that helicopter. So they just upload the information on how to fly helicopters directly into their mind. And then they are masters. They're masters of kung fu, gunfighting, and it's just beyond brilliant. The fights in this movie are amazing. The fight between Agent Smith and Neo is probably one of the coolest fight scenes ever put on TV or whenever they're in the subway. That fight is just beyond brilliant. What I think possibly the greatest fight scene of all time. If you've never seen The Matrix, I don't know who hasn't seen The Matrix yet. But if you haven't seen it, definitely go and check it out. And that's going to wrap it up for this week's list of movies. Thank you to everybody for watching this week's list of movies, numbers 40 through 31. We will see you next Saturday whenever we continue on with numbers 30 through 21. We're getting pretty close, guys, to wrapping up this list. Are you getting excited to find out what is my personal favorite, greatest movie of all time? You better hurry up and check out every single Saturday. I'm going to be dropping some of these videos. Until then, get caught up on all my reaction videos, the podcast, reviews. If you head over to the Game Geeks channel by clicking on that little icon in the top right corner over there, you will see a little card. One card will take you over to that channel where we are doing a walkthrough guide right now for the Halo 5 Guardians campaign. Just posted all of those videos. Go and check them out. Pretty soon we're going to be playing episode 2 of the Minecraft story mode, the new Telltale Adventure game. And then the other icon up in the top right corner you might see will take you over to the Flick Freak store. If you need a t-shirt, coffee mug, phone, or tablet case, that's where you need to go get some great stuff. Last thing I'll mention, Patreon campaign. Every dollar put in that campaign will get put directly back into the channel to make it better, because we're all going to make this channel better together. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video. Until then, Godspeed to 10,000 subscribers.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, guys. 2, 1. This video's over!